The Sports Desk at the Columbus Dispatch presents the BuckeyeXtra Basketball Podcast. With your host, Ohio State basketball beat writer Adam Jardy.
Brady Batiste, get me the rock. Here it goes. Up and away. Slam jam bam. And now he does a little dance.
Now, the BuckeyeXtra Basketball Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Adam Jardy from the Columbus Dispatch. Today is Thursday, October 9th, 2025, and it's my official duty to welcome you into episode 499.3 of the BuckeyeXtra Men's Basketball Podcast. Welcome to Jubilation City. Welcome to, Rosemont, Illinois. I'm here in my hotel room, literally looking out the window at O'Hare Airport, and coming to you after having gone through the gauntlet of a day that is Big Ten Men's Basketball Media Day. And we got a lot to talk about here. And I'll start off, the reason this is 499.3 is that this is now my third attempt to record this. It's the Wi-Fi situation in my hotel, for whatever reason, and decided to go all wonky on me here in the last hour and a half, and tried and it failed, and tried and it failed. And I thought, well, I'll give it a little bit of time. And I'm just hoping that my personal hotspot will hold on long enough for me to get you this podcast, so I can break down what was just a wild day, not wild, just busy day here in the greater Chicago area for Men's Basketball Media Day. So this is one of those days in the calendar that it's one of my favorites. Like, in this job, it is a day that I look forward to every season. And as much as I look forward to it, I also stress about it, because this is the best day of the year to have unique story ideas that you want to pursue. Because at Media Day, you have all 18 coaches, you have players from every team, however many from each team to be determined. We'll talk about that in a minute. But this is a fantastic way to get depth and color and additional voices into stories, to get a perspective outside of the beat that you cover or just the team that you cover. And if you use it right, it can fuel so many stories. And I'm coming to you right now. I've only written one thing out of Media Day, and it was kind of a mishmash, hodgepodge of a couple of just like quick observations and thoughts, because there's not a whole lot, or at least today, there was not a whole lot in the way of like news. And we'll get to that also in a minute here. But today's more about like getting stuff for features and getting other perspectives that will inform reporting down the road, and just gathering as much stuff as you can to try and create unique content that people are going to want to read. And so the amount of time spent in the last 36 hours, I would say, on my end, just pouring through the schedule and the list of who was speaking when, and trying to figure out how to best maximize that to bring you the best coverage that I can, has been incredibly fun and also rather stressful. And so there's a lot to get to, and I'll scratch the surface on this podcast. I'll get as deep into the weeds as I can, kind of taking you through the day a little bit. But just know that like there is a lot to come. And hopefully you've been following along on my social media channels. I've posted a bunch of videos to Instagram and TikTok. I've embedded at least one of them into the first story that I wrote. I really try between the podcasts and Instagram and TikTok, although I will say that the comment section on TikTok, I thought Twitter was bad. It is something. It makes me reconsider, honestly, or want to reconsider even bothering with that platform, because people are just like, look at some of the more recent videos I've posted that have multiple comments on them, and read the comments and then judge for yourself. Or don't. If you'd rather just have a better day, don't bother with that. But anyway, like, I want to try to bring you through the day as best I can. And so right off the top here, I just want to run down. This is everyone that I spoke with today. And this is all going to inform stories, like I said, down the road. I did get some pushback on this on social media immediately, but the first round of interviews rather, because you have half an hour blocks. So after we got Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, I did ask him a question. Then once all the players and coaches started, one of the first groups was Michigan's 2 representatives. So I spoke with Roddy Gale and spoke with Namari Burnett, got some thoughts from them on a couple of things. From there, went and talked to Mike Rhodes, Penn State's coach. Made my way over and talked to Mick Cronin, UCLA's coach. Mick was in great spirits and was at his absolute height of sarcasm, I suppose. Someone asked him about the topic of NCAA tournament expansion, and his immediate answer was, "I'm more worried about my dandruff." In case you're unaware, Mick Cronin, bald as a ghost. So it was fantastic. It's probably my favorite quote of the day. But anyway, so I talked to Mick, went over and talked to Minnesota's Isaac Asuma just to get an observation or two from him on that double overtime Ohio State Minnesota game last year. Still have the badge that somebody made and posted to Twitter after the game that says, "I survived the Ohio State Minnesota double overtime game," because just what a wild night that was. So I talked to him. Went and talked to Oregon's Jackson Shellstad and Nate Biddle. Let's see, from there, got some time with Northwestern coach Chris Collins. Talked to him for a little while. Headed over, and Dusty May, Michigan's coach, had his press conference. Talked to him. Got some insight from him on a couple of things. Was able to grab Matt Painter for a minute and talk to him for a couple of stories I'm working on. Before any of this started, I had a really good conversation with Rafael Davis, former Purdue player, Big Ten Network analyst. I think his insights into the conference and what he has brought to the broadcast the last couple of years, I think is just fantastic. I really enjoy his commentary and his insight. And one of the things, I'm going to write this here soon, but one of the things that he tweeted this summer really was interesting, where he said there was a thing going around like, what's your Big Ten hot take for the year? And his was that Ohio State will get a double bye in the Big Ten tournament, which, granted, we don't have a bracket yet. I don't know how they're going to do this 18-team thing, but presumably that would mean a top 4 finish in the Big Ten. So I talked with Rafael for about 5 minutes on why he believes that. And it was pretty interesting stuff. So I'm going to be writing that story here pretty soon. But talked to him. Like I said, talked to Matt Painter for a while, and then we had the last 2 half-an-hour blocks featured the Ohio State contingent. So Ohio State had Bruce Thornton and Christoph Tilley at not really a podium, at the raised table. And then Jake Diebler had his half an hour, though Diebler went before the players did. So spoke with Tilley, spoke with Bruce, spoke with Jake, also spoke with Devin Royal and John Mobley Jr., who are also here for Ohio State. So I've got a couple of just kind of off the top observations and some little pieces of insight that we're going to get into here in a second. And then I got to get back to writing. So before I get into it, I want to remind you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts. While you're subscribing or downloading, please leave a review, please click 5 stars, and please consider telling a friend. Thanks to everyone who's taken the time to do all those things. It is very much appreciated. And it's a great time of year to do it as well, because Monday was 4 weeks until the first game. And Ohio State will be playing Ohio in an exhibition before much longer. Things are happening, people. So a great time to be part of the podcast. We did get, I'm not going to run through it, but the Big Ten did put out a list of tip times and all that kind of information about the season. So you can go to OhioStateBuckeyes.com and look at the schedule. And now we know when some of these games are, and that will inform some of travel plans and things like that. So go check all that out. It would be incredibly tedious audio for me to run down. Now this game's at this time. Plus, I'm in the central time zone, and if you've been listening to this podcast long enough, you know that time changes mess with my head anyway, so I'd probably get it wrong. So we're going to start with this. Ohio State brought multiple players more than it was supposed to Big Ten Media Day. And this it's sort of a nothing, but I think there's also something to be gleaned from this. Now, in general, teams are requested to bring 2 players to media day, and it's the 2, standouts. It's the 2 spokespeople, whatever. But not everyone has always stuck with it. And even 2 years ago, Ohio State brought Bruce Thornton, Roddy Gale, and Jamison Battle. Now that was in Minneapolis, so having Battle there, there was, that added to it, and certainly he was a critical part of that team. But in general, Ohio State's stuck to the rules, brought 2 people. Well, this year they brought 4, and that was interesting to me. So when I asked Jake Diebler about that, I said, "Why'd you bring 4?" And he said, "Because they deserve it." He said, "All 4 of those guys are going to be so important to our team. I also think you have a couple vets in Bruce and Tilly who've experienced something like this before, and it's a great way to introduce Devin and Junie, who are going to be so important to our team and who deserve to be here, to be able to experience this for the first time." So it is telling to me that they couldn't make a differentiation between those 4 and just decided to bring all 4. Devin and Junie didn't get in front of a camera. They did some one-on-ones with a couple of us, but they weren't at the official press conference with the cameras on them. They weren't on the Big Ten Network live set that was there. They didn't do that stuff, but they were still there, representing Ohio State and being part of Ohio State. And Bruce Thornton made a comment at one point that those guys are the future of Ohio State basketball. And so it was interesting to see an almost glimpse into the future of a passing of the torch that is still lit and being carried at this moment. And it speaks to just how important all 4 of those are going to be, all 4 of those players are going to be for this Ohio State season. I think right now we can probably project that those 4 will be the 4 leading scorers. I think when I start my Ohio State power rankings here before too much longer, which, those 14 guys in the roster, it takes a minute. Those guys are probably going to occupy the top 4 spots. I don't think any of that is a surprise, but I think it just speaks to how important they view each one of them, that they didn't just cap it at 2. They very easily could have just brought Bruce and Tilly. Instead, they brought all 4 of them. And so it just seems like a distinction and a situation that merits just file that away as we continue to get our bearings on this season and what this team will be like and what this team will be known for. That's interesting to me. So that's right off the top. That's why Ohio State brought 4 guys, and why that merits a bit of a conversation. Diebler did point out that Tom Izzo has been doing this for years, and it's true. There have been a number of times Izzo's brought his entire starting 5 because he's not going to pick from just 1 or 2, and so we've seen this over the years with different teams, but this like I said, this merited some conversation here as far as bringing everyone to media day this year. Now, from an actual quote unquote news standpoint, really I got 2 or 3 kind of quick hitters here that are worth going over. One, Ohio State's been shorthanded in practice the last day or 2. Diebler said nothing serious, just some guys dealing with some preseason stuff. But he did say that 2 weeks ago they were in a really good spot. This week, not as much. And he said that in practice on Wednesday, that they ended up having to they brought in Jared Sullinger and Keyshawn Woods to help just have extra bodies in practice who could compete and provide a presence. It was interesting. This isn't the first time that Keyshawn has done that. He's stepped in before. It was during the Holtman era and helped out in practice when they were low on guards, I believe, if memory serves. So doesn't sound like it, like I said, doesn't sound like it's anything serious. Diebler said, quote, "We're not as healthy as we were 2 weeks ago. Nothing new and alarming that's going to be a long-term thing." He said, "We missed a couple practices with some guys to typical preseason injuries." He said, "Hopefully Friday we'll be close to back to full strength." So at this point, I don't think it's too much to worry about. I didn't get a sense that there's some big lingering injury that's hanging over the balance of the preseason. I did ask Devin Royal about his ankle. He said he's fine. So not much to worry about there. And then we got a little bit of an update here on Josh Ojimuna and kind of not when he'll be back on the court, but like when is there going to be an update, or what's the update on when there will be an update, basically. And Dealer just said, he said, in my non-medical opinion, I think we're targeting the end of this month to at least be able to have an understanding of what the next month or two looks like. He said, as of today, we haven't even talked about beyond the next like 1 week at a time. He said he is starting to do more stuff. So he's been working extremely hard, progressing well. So my hope is we'll have some more clarity as to light at the end of the tunnel, end of this month, early next month. Now, I have heard it said that if he's not able to play this, or if he, how do I put this? He could look for a medical red shirt and return next year. Like that would certainly, I think that's a possibility at this point. Like if it's, you're only going to be able to play for a handful of games or something like that, that it would be a case of a medical red shirt, come back next year. What will be interesting is I'm not going to get into this at any great length, but there was a lot of conversation today about changing the eligibility rule where, you have 5 years to play 4. Maybe now you get 5 years to play 5, and it kind of takes the red shirt thing out of the picture. Could that pass? Could that impact, Josh's decision? I mean, heck, could that pass? And you're talking about 5th year Captain Bruce Thornton next year? Like, who knows? The uncertainty around those kinds of things was a talking point throughout the day, but we're not going to get too deep into that on this exact episode here of the podcast. The other piece of sort of not news, but Ohio State's still at 14 players. And as we've talked about on here, they've been in pursuit of adding Puff Johnson, trying to get him a waiver so he would get a 6th year of eligibility. It's mid-October. That hasn't happened yet. I mean, I have been told that if it were to happen, even if it would be later into the calendar, that they would be accepting of that, and that they believe in his character and kind of who he is, that like, having to jump into a boot camp essentially and catch up quickly and try to be a contributor, like that would still be, they wouldn't just dismiss that out of hand. Like I always think about that scene in Miracle where they try to add a player, or they bring in a player for workouts, and the team like unites and is like, no, like, we're a family. And Herb Brooks listens, and they don't bring in the guy. Like, do you worry about disrupting chemistry and locker room stuff? And that does not seem to be something that is a concern. But Diebler did say, I asked him, so it's kind of crazy to ask this in mid-October, but is your roster set? He said, it seems like it is. He said, we have one more space available, but as of today, I'd say it seems like we're pretty well set. So I think let's all just kind of take that for what it's worth. It seemed like a long shot all along. Puff's played in 111 games and at least 14 in every game, or in every season in the last 5 years. So it's always kind of seemed like a long shot. But then again, what has the NCAA won lately? So that's where we sit on that. Moving on to Christoph Tilley. I got a story coming on this here real soon, but he is preparing to play a lot. We talked about conditioning and what drills he does not like to do. He talked about the Echo bike, which is that like the fan bike where it's your arms and your legs, and apparently that's his least favorite. But he said he is preparing to play a lot. Dealer talked about his conditioning, about working with him on that. But when I asked Tilley about it, he said physically and mentally too, I have to be ready to play worst case 40 minutes. He said, I think the coaches have done a great job so far to get everybody ready for that. I have to be mentally ready for that. So that is on the radar, or on the, like, in the mind, that like they're going to ask him to play a lot, and he's prepared for a role where he's going to play more minutes than he's ever played, and he's going to play it in a bigger, more physical conference than he's ever played in. But there seems to be a real belief that he is up for that. And I continue to just have this feeling around him and what he brings to the team, that there's a real understanding that this could be a pretty good team, and he could be a major focal point of that. And that not only puts him in a spotlight for really the first time in his career, but that certainly puts him in a position where it could alter the trajectory of his professional career. So all of that, in addition to the fact that it does, by all accounts, seem like he's really bought into embracing his role and being important contributor and key cog on this roster. I think he's set up for a pretty big year. It feels that way. It seems that way. That's how everyone is. That's the tenor of the conversation around him. And I think I've been saying that he's unique on the Ohio State roster. I think he might be their most irreplaceable player. And I think as long as he is healthy, I think he's going to have like a breakout type of season. That's just what it feels like as I sit here on October 9th. One of the other things that really was interesting to me, and this is another story that's coming down the road, but I'm going to call him Jovial Bruce Thornton, because there's a different vibe around Bruce compared to certainly any point really in the last 3 years. Like, not that he wasn't loose before or what, like he's always been a fine interview, and you can tell that like he has respect of his teammates, and you can tell that like, this all matters a lot to him. But Jake Diebler had an interesting comment at Ohio State's media day, asked about Bruce, and he said how he's more intense, but he's also like looser or lighter this year. And the interactions that I've had with him this summer and this fall, that does sum it up pretty well. At interviews today, at the podium, like I don't really ever remember Bruce like roasting his teammates, but he absolutely did, like multiple times. Like someone asked the two of them, asked Bruce and Christoph, like, who's the loudest player on the team? And he immediately said Gabe. And then someone said, well, do you have like a good Gabe Cup story? And Bruce said, too many I can't express right now. I'll have to wait until I graduate college. He was asked about Matthew Grujic, and turns out that Grujic, they call him Gru, which of course just makes me think of Despicable Me and Minions and all that. But so I clarified. So Gru for Grujic, and Bruce said that's what he told us to call him, but he's a freshman, so he doesn't really have no say so. I thought that was, again, have you ever heard Bruce Thornton like just like dig at a teammate like that? Like obviously in a playful way. You can watch a video that I published that's I know this one's in the first story that I wrote, and it's on my Instagram and TikTok feeds, but the end of practice the end of interviews, John Mobley asked Bruce Thornton a question, and Bruce basically called him his son and said how much he enjoys, like, it's like taking your kid to work with you every day. That's what he talked. That was his answer. And Mobley was like hanging his head. Like it was a different side. And there does seem to be a sense of like, I felt like coming into this year would be like 1,000 pounds of pressure per square inch, like make the tournament, make the tournament, make the tournament, make the tournament. I don't feel that in my interactions with Bruce. He spoke about like trash talking. Like I asked Junie about it, and he said like the first time he heard Bruce trash talk, he like stopped and turned his head, because it just isn't necessarily like part of what he's been at Ohio State. There's something different there, and I'm going to get into that all in a story here before too long. But that was one of my big takeaways as well. Just like Bruce Thornton is like a different dude this year in that regard, and he really believes, and his teammates believe, that's going to allow him to play freer and with less pressure. And some of that is that like there's more, they feel they have more dudes around him who can contribute at a high level. This isn't just going to be on his shoulders. Now, one of those guys that can help, presumably, we got more buzz here for Amari Bynum. And now, granted, these were like, hey, what have you seen from Amari Bynum type of questions. This wasn't just like volunteered without any sort of prompting. But like, here's what Christoph Tilley said when asked about Amari Bynum. His potential is crazy. Tall, athletic, long arms, can shoot the ball, can jump, can finish around the rim. And then like, here's another example. This is Bruce being a little bit tongue-in-cheek, or jovial Bruce Thornton. He said, Amari has a lot of potential, especially with the athleticism and energy that he brings. And he said, I feel like he's scared at practice. That's why his urgency is so high. I feel like he's trying not to get on the bike at practice. But you can respect a guy like that, because nobody's trying to do extra conditioning on top of the conditioning we already do. He said his energy every day and willingness to be coachable, especially for a freshman with a lot of veteran guys around him. he's understanding that every possession matters. I feel like we've struggled with that in past years. And Diebler was asked about him, and he said, we're anticipating him being really impactful for us. He's got elite maturity. He wants to be coached. He's got the physical tools to be impactful. He's got some real physicality to him as a freshman, and the consistency at which he operates and comes back asking for more work, it's been impressive. He's going to be ready to help us from day one. He's going to continue to grow as the season goes on. Now, the last thing that I'm going to get into on this one, because again, I know I have someone in the room. These walls are not super thick, and I know there's someone one room over, and I don't want to get that phone call that I assume I'm going to get one of these nights here doing a podcast on the road late at night. And also, I don't want my hotspot to run out. But there's a lot of joking between the guys. You can read. I wrote about the interactions in the story that went up here on Thursday night. But there was not a lot of like national-ish or regional-ish, non-Columbus media-ish interest in Ohio State today. The time that the Buckeyes were at their podium, which I earlier said was not a podium, but it's just easier to call it that, was largely ignored by everyone else. Now, the timing of this stuff doesn't, I mean, I will say, like, from a national perspective or whatever, like, the timing of when Ohio State spoke to the media didn't lend itself to like, oh, I'm just going to go check out and see what Ohio State had to say. For example, when Jake Diebler was at the podium, Matt Painter was directly to his left, and Tom Izzo was directly to his right. Greg Gard was also doing his interviews at that point. And then Thornton and Tilley, their time at the podium was the last time of the day. So if you're not, essentially, people leave, or like at that point, like if the team that you cover was doing like the first round of interviews, then you know you're kind of deep into whatever you're doing. You're not always going to be super engaged with the last group of people that are talking, but Bruce and Tilley went at the same time as Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn. Doesn't do you a whole lot of favors, I guess. Like those guys had a huge contingent, but it was interesting to me that the Ohio State's players and coach essentially like talk to the same really two people that they do in Columbus. There was not much other interest in what they were doing. Now, I mean, I saw people talking to them sort of in between, or like, you know, other coaches or people talking to Diebler here and there, but the Buckeyes were not in high demand for interviews today. And I just thought that was interesting. And like I said, as I try to paint a scene of what the day was like, that was part of it. And yeah, a little bit surprising. Sometimes that's just how the schedule breaks down. Now, two little bits of non-media day news. One, Ohio State's been recruiting Anthony Thompson. We've talked about him here on the podcast. It was posted on Twitter earlier today that he's announcing his college choice on October 21st. Obviously, Ohio State is in the running. I've heard wildly different things about what Ohio State is able to offer him in a NIL direct compensation revenue share agreement type of deal. Like, I've heard two wildly different things. I don't know where the Buckeyes stand on that. I thought that I had an idea going into today. I heard something that was the other end of the spectrum, so maybe it's somewhere in the middle. But I do know that, like, from just a straight up recruiting relationship fit type of deal, I think Ohio State feels like it's in a really good spot. We'll see what that looks like here as we get to October 21st. Hopefully I can get some more information between now and then. And the final thing, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the 9th annual official Big Ten men's basketball media poll dropped on Tuesday, or Wednesday rather. Days are irrelevant. 9th year of me putting this on. For the first 7 years, I was partnered with my friend Brendan Quinn of The Athletic. For the last 2 years now, I've been partnering with Zach Osterman from the Indianapolis Star. So it's billed as a joint venture between the Dispatch and the Star. Purdue favored to win the league. No real surprise there. Michigan picked second. Ohio State ended up ninth in the poll. And Bruce Thornton was second team All Big Ten. Highest vote getter who did not make the first team. Devin Royal got a second team vote. And Amari Bynum got a freshman of the year vote. That was Ohio State's representation in the polls. I'm going to run down my ballot for you real quickly, just in case this is something you're remotely interested in. But I had Purdue winning the league. Purdue 1, Michigan 2, UCLA 3, Illinois 4, Michigan State 5, Oregon 6. I had Ohio State 7th, Iowa 8, Wisconsin 9, Maryland 10, Indiana 11, Minnesota 12, USC 13, Nebraska 14, and the bottom 4, Washington, Rutgers, Northwestern, Penn State. That was pretty much across the board. Like those 3 bottom teams, Rutgers, Northwestern, Penn State, put them in whatever order you want. Those 3 were widely regarded to be the bottom 3 teams. And Purdue, Michigan, UCLA, Illinois, widely regarded top 4. Oregon also in there in a lot of cases. Oregon, Michigan State, those were kind of the other teams that are jockeying for position. As far as my superlatives, I had Braden Smith, Player of the Year, Hans Steinbach as Freshman of the Year, and Donovan Dent as the Transfer of the Year. My first team all-conference was Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman-Wren, Donovan Dent, Yaxel Lendenborg, and then Andrei Stojakovic. And then I had Thornton's second team with Nick Martinelli, Bennett Sturtz, Jackson Shellstead, and Cohen Carr. I think he's going to have a big year for the Spartans. So in case you were remotely interested who I voted for, that was how I saw it. Picking 18 teams is nasty business. It's not easy. And I'm just glad that we had 28 writers voting this, and very proud of the legacy that we've established here, doing this for 9 straight years. And hope you enjoyed that piece of content. On the other, as far as other things go, like I heard from quite a few of you. I did have knee surgery 2 weeks ago, and I'm getting back on the mend. I'm not quite there. Got my stitches out this week and walking without the crutches now. It's pretty wild. I don't know if any of you can relate to this, but when I went into the doctor on Tuesday to get my stitches out, they ended up draining 53 cc's of blood out of my left knee, which was not an enjoyable experience, but that was surprising. Did not think that was in the offing. So it's been kind of a weird week, but we're slowly getting there, and I'm walking around as best I can, and glad that I was able to be here because I have so much to write and so much content to bring you. So please make sure you're visiting dispatch.com. Make sure you're clicking on all the stuff and following on all the social channels. You won't find coverage of Ohio State basketball like what the Dispatch allows me to bring you. And so just appreciate everyone who follows along, reads, clicks, listens, watches, I was going to say texts. I missed the texting. All the things. You're appreciated. Thank you so much. It was interesting, too, on the drive here. I was thinking how the last road trip of the season was to go to Indianapolis for the Big Ten tournament, which wasn't a very long stay. And pretty much the whole drive there, I listened to Jason Isbell's most recent album, Foxes in the Snow, which was basically his divorce album. And listened to that multiple times on the drive. And then to this week, driving out here for the start of the season, his ex-wife Amanda Shires put out her solo album. And it is phenomenal. And I pretty much listened to that for a good portion of the drive, and I've listened to it multiple times. It is incredibly gut-wrenching, but just an unbelievably powerful, emotional listen. And so I would encourage you to give Amanda Shires a listen because her voice is powerful, and her story also deserves to be told. And it's a great album. So go check that out too. All right. As always, you can send along your questions, your comments, your love notes, your hate mail, and otherwise constructive criticism to me at Adam Jardy on Twitter or ajardy@dispatch.com. Thanks again for listening. Thanks to our web team for getting this published. I'll be back with you next week, probably early-ish in the week. We'll kind of see where we are as we get through the weekend and as I continue to dive into all this stuff for Media Day. But it won't be long until you hear from me again. So until that time, be kind, take care, and we'll talk soon.